Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're analyzing historical records to really understand a pivotal, world-altering moment in human history. We're going to look at how the unimaginable brutality of the Pacific War collided head-on with the highly classified, totally secret science of the Manhattan Project. It's a collision that ultimately ended a devastating global war, but as you'll see, it came at a profound cost, forever changing our world and literally launching us into the atomic age. Let's get into it. Here's our agenda for today. We'll start with the Pacific War escalation, then we'll look at the Manhattan Project, followed by the days of decision and destruction, the immediate devastation, and finally, the long-term health effects.
Okay, Section 1, Pacific War Escalation.
Taking a look at this timeline, you can really see how the intensity builds. It starts with the initial shock of the Pearl Harbor attack, back in December 1941. From there, we hit a massive turning point at the Battle of Midway in June 1942, which fundamentally shifted naval power. But as the Allies pushed closer and closer to the Japanese mainland over the years, the resistance just grew fiercer. That led to the exceptionally bloody, desperate battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa in early 1945. Now look at the sheer scale of the tragedy represented by this number. We're talking about Okinawa here. In that single battle, over 100,000 Japanese soldiers and 12,500 Americans died. The ferocity of these engagements, complete with kamikaze attacks and deeply entrenched defenses, absolutely terrified U.S. military planners. It forced them to calculate the potentially catastrophic human cost of a full-scale mainland invasion of Japan. Moving on to Section 2, the Manhattan Project. While those grueling conventional battles were raging across the Pacific Islands, a completely secret parallel race was happening right in the United States. And the starting point? It was actually triggered by a stark warning in 1939. Brilliant physicists Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard urgently warned President Roosevelt that Nazi Germany might already be working on splitting the uranium atom to build incredibly powerful new bombs. That single letter was literally the spark that ignited the largest scientific endeavor in human history.
The resulting Manhattan Project was an absolute behemoth. It operated in total secrecy, yet it cost an astounding $2 billion. To put that into perspective, that's closer to $28 billion in today's money. It employed roughly 130,000 people across massive hidden sites like Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, and Hanford. And the wildest part? Most of these workers had absolutely no idea what they were actually building until the very end.
Crucially, they didn't just build one bomb. They actually developed two entirely different designs at the exact same time. It's a fascinating comparison. Little Boy, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima, used rare uranium-235 in a relatively simple gun-type design, basically firing one piece of uranium into another. Fat Man, used on Nagasaki, was a whole different story. It used plutonium in a much more complex implosion-type device, which required precise explosive lenses just to compress the core. Which brings us to Section 3, Days of Decision and Destruction. So these two distinct timelines, the increasingly bloody Pacific Theater and the breathtaking scientific breakthroughs of the Manhattan Project, finally converged on the desk of President Harry S. Truman in the summer of 1945. Historical records show us the grim calculus Truman faced. With military estimates projecting anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million U.S. casualties in a mainland invasion, not to mention countless Japanese civilian and military deaths, the atomic bomb was impartially viewed by leadership as the fastest military means available to shock the Japanese government into a swift surrender, ending the brutal global conflict. Based on official National Park Service records, the timeline of August 6th shows us exactly how quickly history was made. Early in the morning, at 2:45 a.m., the B-29 bomber Enola Gay takes off. Jump to 8:15 a.m., and the uranium bomb Little Boy is released. It fell for exactly 43 seconds before detonating over Hiroshima at 8:16 a.m., triggering nuclear fission in a fraction of a microsecond. Just 3 days later, on August 9th, a second mission launched. But look at how fate played a role here. Severe weather actually spared the primary target city of Kokura. Because visual bombing was strictly required, the crew of the bomber boxcar was forced to pivot. At 11:02 a.m., they dropped the plutonium bomb Fat Man on their secondary target, the city of Nagasaki.
Now we turn to Section 4, Immediate Devastation.
The immediate physical and human toll of these two detonations was just unlike anything ever witnessed in the entire history of human warfare. The mechanics of the destruction completely redefined what a weapon could do. According to extensive post-war reviews, the energy distribution was uniquely catastrophic. 50% of the energy went straight into the blast wave and 35% into thermal heat.
Radiation actually accounted for only 15% of the energy. That radiation, which caused so much long-term suffering, acted almost like a deadly byproduct of the immense blast and heat.
The sheer mechanical force released was absolutely terrifying. Ground temperatures instantly spiked to 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Think about that. It's hot enough to melt buildings, fuse materials together, and completely vaporize human tissue. And this was immediately followed by a shockwave moving at 984 miles per hour. That's faster than the speed of sound, folks. It simply demolished the cities, expanding outward in a massive, unstoppable firestorm. And the immediate human cost is just staggering. The surrounding mountains of Nagasaki did contain the blast slightly compared to Hiroshima's flat plains, but the ultimate result was identical. As you can see, both cities saw roughly 1/3 of their entire populations killed by the end of December 1945, when you combine the instant deaths with acute injuries.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, long-term health effects.
The story of the atomic bombs didn't end in 1945. Beyond the immediate destruction, we really have to examine the sobering 40-year medical studies conducted on the Hibakusha, the incredibly resilient survivors of the bombings. To understand the true aftermath and the invisible threat of radiation, scientists from Japan and the US collaborated to form the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission in 1950. They set up a massive, fixed population epidemiological study, rigorously tracking the lifespan, pathology, and genetics of the survivors over decades to uncover the late health effects of ionizing radiation.
Now, what's really interesting about the 40-year data categorizing these long-term dangers are some of the surprising results. It definitely confirmed strong links to leukemia, cataracts, and microcephaly for those exposed in utero. It also found weak associations with some other solid cancers. But crucially, and perhaps most surprisingly, it found absolutely no statistical association with accelerated aging, sterility, or inherited genetic mutations in the offspring of survivors. The medical data reveals this incredibly cruel, delayed timeline of radiation sickness, which came in a distinct wave pattern. First, acute deaths occurred in the initial 4 months. Then, leukemia cases began to spike, peaking about 6 years after the blast. Finally, other solid tumor cancers didn't even begin to significantly rise until a full decade later. It really shows how radiation damage can just lie dormant in human cells. One of the most heartbreaking yet scientifically vital findings from the commission actually came from the in utero study. The data pinpointed a very precise window of severe vulnerability for unborn children. Those who were exposed to the bomb's gamma rays and neutrons, specifically between the 8th and 15th week of gestation, showed the highest frequency of severe developmental issues. It's a stark illustration of the profound biological disruption caused by radiation. As we wrap up this explainer, we really have to look at the larger historical ripple effect. We know that by 1949, through espionage and their own crash programs, the Soviet Union detonated an atomic bomb of their own. So we're left with a massive question. As the ashes settled over Japan and the apocalyptic secrets of the atom spread across the globe, did humanity truly buy lasting peace, or did we simply invent an entirely new, far more efficient way to destroy ourselves? It's a chilling question we're still navigating today. Thanks for joining me to explore this complex history.